Zombo, and many others. Not also even not forgetting Arua. I think they should be able in preparation, because the timeline stipulated always means that they will have to work within. And of course, pertaining the 4th division, we all know when it comes to, of course, always beating deadline, Maracha always seems to be the best when it comes to always the 4th division. They're always early in the preparations pertaining that. And of course, as I said, we today took a look on Koboko, basically 4th division side. They say they have 17 clubs, of course, to play, and one team, which is Red Stars, likely, of course, to join in and to play, of course, in this league, which is something breaking there. And of course, speaking to the DFA PRO, he did speak about some of the challenges, maybe one of the reasons that why it's a bit taking long for it to take place. He talked about, of course, the licensing, which is a bit a process, and I think most of the clubs have done licensing. We did mention some of the clubs, especially we're talking about, like I said, today we zero down to Koboko, like a Border View. They already got their licenses, and I think they should be able. And of course, still, the other clubs that are struggling, for instance, of course, we're talking about the delay of the kickoff of the 4th division, and of course they did complain about the finance support. They needed really the finance sometimes to put things work there, and then management aspects, that's one of the things which is a bit, of course, delaying. Maybe also the FIFA account, that's what they don't have, and others are still struggling. But all in all, and of course, the 4th league is ready to kick off. That is per the latest, and I said we today zero down at Koboko, and I think the rest of the districts pertaining West Nile should be able to also engage the same. That is the latest coming pertaining the 4th division league, and of course going strictly to the other side there, crossing to the 3rd division league, of course, the regional league. We're talking about the West Nile Regional League, and yesterday we did witness a couple of games, of course, are played, and of course today we're here to give you the results, and of course apart from the results, more about the games also to play, to come your way, of course, today, that is from the Nyagak zone, and at the same time, of course, the Nile zone. And of course, based on the games played yesterday, we did witness, of course, Nile Hippos are beating, that is Parombo Mission, 2-0, courtesy, of course, of the player who did got himself in the score sheet for the first time there. That is, of course, Nile Hippos, really giving them 3 points yesterday. We did look at also another interesting match, of course, the derby. We're talking about, that is Koboko Rising Stars, that traveled all the way to, that is Nyangile Super Eagles. Nyangile Super Eagles, of course, they are still new, and of course, they did play the other derby, of course, that is Tipsa, where they lost 2-0, and this time, of course, where yesterday they played, that is the oldest team, of course, I'm talking about Koboko Rising Stars, where they lost. They drew, of course, they lost to, that's the first team, that is Tipsa, 2-0, and this time the second derby they played, where they drew 1-1, of course. Koboko Rising Stars getting an early goal there, and of course, as soon, and within 5 minutes, of course, equalized, that is by Nyangile Super Eagles. That ended in 1-1 draw for the derby there. Of course, we shall also talk more about that. On the other side, of course, we have Coach Urban did draw with, that is Ottoman. Ottoman, interestingly, Ottoman, of course, is still new, and the way Ottoman is, of course, giving a hard time to the clubs, it tells me really Ottoman seems to be prepared. They did go down, of course, in the mid of the season, and of course, today we're also getting better performance from Ottoman. One of the sides, of course, from Yumbe, well organized, this time supported. And I think Ottoman should be the club. They did go themselves, of course, a draw them, and of course, denying that is Coach Urban a point, of course, at home, and that means the game ended into there. And today, of course, more games to also come your way, and I said we shall always let you know about what's also developing or coming in most of these games. And I did say a couple of games, of course, to come. We have quite a number of games to come, which are today. And I said, of course, also tomorrow, we're going to witness quite a number of games. One, we're talking about the game which is to be played, and that is a game between, Koboko side, that is Tipsa. They will take on, of course, that is Andruvo. This game will be tomorrow. And of course, on the other side also, on the other side, we did also see that is from the Nile side. From the Nile side, of course, number of games also to come. Like I said, the match day, of course, we continue. And of course, looking at these games as we try to get some of the matches, we are finally concluding, of course, ending what we call the first phase of the West Nile Regional League. I think this should be match day 11. That's basically what is happening today. And I want to assure you that, of course, shortly, these games are going to end, and of course, probably this week, and then they will go in for a break. And of course, the latest coming in that they are likely to resume, or the second phase, the second round of the West Nile Regional League is likely to continue from around 25th of that is January. So that means no much time to rest. These clubs are not going to take so much over the time. Of course, they're likely to have like 2 weeks. So from the information coming, that's from the West Nile Regional Management, that around 25th to 29th, that's when the second league will kick off. And I did talk about some of the games that are likely to play today. And of course, we're going to witness, that is Padea Rising Stars. They'll be taking on Arua City. And this is another cracker there for Arua City, another struggling side. We have Paida United. They'll play Arua Airfield. That game will also be today. We'll have Odomachako will travel. Of course, they will be at home to welcome BK. And of course, still another battle there for BK that has not been good for them. And then the last match on card, and from the Nile zone, we have, that is Okokoro United. They will tussle it out with Araka, and that game will also be today, as I said, at 4 p.m. And of course, tomorrow, Sunday, come also another cracker there. Like I did mention earlier on, Tipsa will welcome, that is Anduvu, a newly promoted side at home. Of course, we're talking about Sunday games. We also have Pakach Young Stars. They will also tussle it out with the Alpha Rising Stars. Of course, we're talking about the Nyagak zone, and that game will be at, of course, St. Mary's Bar or Match. That's where Pakwach always plays. And then we shall also witness Ovison, of course, FC playing Kuluva Rainbow. That is the latest, of course, for they are pertaining, of course, the games that are to come your way. And of course, looking at the games played yesterday, that means probably they, of course, they starting. We're talking about the standing that must have changed, much as we have some matches which are not played. Looking at the Nile zone, of course, Odomachako tops first there, of course, with the 20 points, and with the 9 games played, that means they should be having some problem with the one, since they have also one game at hand. So if they win that, that means they will go around 26 or 23 points. And of course, still the other match pending this season from the officials. Number 2, we have, that is Total. Total this time incredibly doing very, very well, coming, of course, second there with 17 points. As they're also going to play, of course, that will put them around 20 points. As for now, they have played 10 games, and that means that they have a higher chance of finishing in a better position when it comes to the end of a first league of the season. And of course, in number 3, we have Kobok Rising Stars with 16 points. Kobok Rising Stars, of course, I said earlier on, they did draw with, that is the newly promoted side. We're talking about, that is Nyang'lelia Super Eagles, of course, 1 point. But when you look at the table now, that means they should be having 17 points. That is Kobok Rising Stars. Not so bad for them. 4th position, Adjuman Town Council with 15 points. Of course, Adjuman did play, those are 9 games, means that they still have 1 game pending. Of course, kind of CDP issues. That means now 1 more to play. Should they win that, of course, it will take them clear to around 15 points if they grab all the 6 points. So wait to see what's going to happen pertaining the other league, of course, since they played, the other game since they played that. And of course, number 5 comes Nyang'lelia Super Eagles, and that did draw. When you just look at Nyang'lelia Super Eagles and Rising for now, they're just like close, of course. They have 15 points each, and the difference is, of course, looking at the goal difference, they all have 2 goal difference, positive. There should be more, of course, the ratios. That's why we're looking at this is, that is Ajuma Town Council, of course, now being ahead of that is Nyang'hile Super Eagles. Number 6 comes Ottoman, a newly promoted side, of course, with 13 points, as they did drew yesterday. Means they have now 14 points to their name there. Number 7, we have Okokoro, of course. Today they are also to play, and they played 9 games. One match, of course, that match was against that was Tipsa, where there were issues, of course, that arose and still waiting or pending for decision from CDP. And I think definitely, and of course, according to the reports, based on the match between Tipsa and Okokoro, that means Okokoro likely to lose because there were issues relating to, of course, the normal rules, of course. How can you just play, and of course, a game without sometimes not demarcating? So those are the issues why of course, 3 points or one of the match for that is Okokoro is still pending for decision, and I think they're likely to lose, of course, based on other reports. So Okokoro, of course, 9 points, 13. If they win today, they will go to 16 points, of course, still placing them somewhere. Araka, of course, that's also having a game today. They're in number 8 position with 13. Should they win today, of course, it will take them to 16. That means they will have a battle that is with that is Ottoman and, of course, Okokoro, if all didn't go well for the two. That means the person there. And of course, looking at the danger zone, the red zone, we are talking about the relegation, of course. In most cases, all the 80 teams are to qualify. But for now, if the league is to close up, is to end, that means we're likely to see the likes of Coach Aban, of course, not really so good for them in the first half with 13 points in the 9th position. And we have Tips, of course, with 9 points in the 10th position. BK having a game today with 7 points in position 11. Lastly, we have Androvo, a very struggling and, of course, crawling there. Being new, of course, sometimes it takes you time to learn certain things, of course. And with only 2 points, rock bottom there. Looking at the Nyagak zone, of course, seems to be quite tough and easier football there. When you look at the first team on the table with the 20 points compared to that's the Nile zone, which the first team, of course, has around. We're talking about 20 points. That means it's a bit stiff and competitive from the Nile zone, but still that does not judge. So looking at the standing, of course, from the Nyakak zone, of course, we have Nebi Central with 21 points. And of course, Nebi Central quite standing this time in their performing. Of course, 10 games, winning 6, drawing 3, losing 1, of course, means they are somehow good side there with a goal difference of 18 points to their names there. They seems to be quite comfortable, and I think how they close the season not really bad for Nebi Central. There, number 2 comes that is Kuluva Rainbow with 18 points. They also have a game at hand. Of course, they've just played 10 games, and if they win this, that means they'll go to 21 points. And of course, now the question will be on that is Nebi Central. Should they win, it will really take them to go ahead, of course, with the 24 points, still maintaining the table right there. Alpha Rising Stars in the 3rd position with 17 points, and I said with the game at hand. And of course, number 4 comes Paida United, 16 points, still a game to play. Paida United, of course, 9 games so far confirmed. We don't know where the other game is, and we shall also let you know about that. So if they play today, that means they will have 10 games. And of course, with 16 points, that means they'll have 19, and the other will find, of course, from the CDP how or what exactly it will happen. We also have Arua Hill, of course, that is Arua Airfield, you know, very, very close names there. We're talking about Arua Airfield, of course, with 16 points, again with the match at hand. And of course, in the 6th position, we have Pakwach Young Stars, of course, the 15. Pakwach Youngsters, another outstanding person there. Yesterday, they did play, of course, the Ghana Cup shall also give the results. They did beat, of course, that is the other side, with massive goals. We shall tell you about that. But the question now comes, they did do very well in the Ghana Cup. But when it comes to the domestic, the regional, things are not moving well. We shall also talk about that, of course. We're here taking you through about the table standing from the Nyagak side, where Pakwach Young Stars still stands in position 6 with 15 points with the match at hand. Number 7, Padia Rising Stars, of course, with the 9 games played. Nile Hippo also that played yesterday. They did drew, of course, with 12 points. Means they have 13 for now in the 8th position. Number 9, we have Parombo Mission with 11 points. Arua City, and of course, with 11 points. And of course, comprising of the rock bottom there. We also have that is Okolo Central with 7 points, 10 games played, and really not forgetting that is Ovison down there, with things really not all that good for Ovison there. And of course, Ovison, being a newly promoted side, means they will have to really do a lot. They will have to do a lot to see that really they come back. And we shall want to talk about why Ovison is really not so much and trying to really perform. Some of these things are internal. And of course, we did invite one of the teams. I want to still applaud the management of Nduparaka for really being that transparent and conversant in looking into issues that, of course, seeing how football should move kind of fluently or should really move without stuck. It's always unfortunate when you go to a game without, or you miss going for a game sometimes because there's no transport. As they did mention, of course, transport is one of the issues that affects, and how they really came up with a very bold kind of project which will give them an opportunity to see how they solve some of these matters. And of course, I also encourage, of course, the same clubs, whether it be a structured or not structured club. That means you'll have to do the same, of course, to see that football moves. And we're talking about that is Ovison, a newly promoted side there, where they are not really so that good for them. That is Ovison. Of course, we wish them all the best. And of course, you are getting us live. This is Whistle Time at West Nile TV. It's me, Swahib, for today, taking you through the program. And I know you're enjoying the weekend, of course. We have just concluded about the Division 4 and Division 3 game, and of course, and also here to take you through what we call the big league matches or games, how games have been going, and of course that's what people have been expecting and of course waiting. And of course the breaking news is that tomorrow the game is of course on, and we're likely to of course give you the live updates about that game. I'm talking about one of the biggest derby that will come. To start with, of course, over the week we did witness a couple of games played, that is in the big league. That means this time we're likely to come in, of course, to closely a number of games played that's pertaining the big league. And of course, in the matches played, we're talking about date 9 of that is January. We did see Gaddafi FC, of course, beating that is by the Black Angels by 1-0, and of course an early goal there by that's the striker, of course, really who is on form this time for Gaddafi as they lead the table, denying by the Black Angels, of course, 3 points there. Of course, Calvary also winning 2-0. That game was played on date 8th, of course, beating that is Kigezi Homeboys, and as Calvary tomorrow, and of course moves forward to another. And of course, I said we shall still look at some of the games that will come your way, and we shall quickly wrap up with the standing, looking at how these games were played. Some of the matches were played, but let's look at quickly about the standing of the big league, how it stands for today. I will have Gaddafi, of course, at top with, of course, 29 points, followed by Black Powers with 26 points. On Nduparaka with the 22 points in the third position there. Not really so bad for them as they close the gap to that is Black Powers. Number 4 comes Bohimba United, of course, with the 22. When you look at Bohimba United, of course, they did win 4 and they drew 1. That means not so bad for them. Calvary, of course, are sitting in the 21st, 21 points in position 5. Of course, Paida Black Angels 16 in the 6th position there into their name. Of course, Paida Black Angels of late another struggling, but not bad for them. Number 7 Boma with of course 16 points. That means they're good to go as per the first round. Of course, number 8 we have Kindi Boys with 16 points. Number 9 we have Kataka with 16 points. Karo Karungi, and of course another side there with with tough conditions there, not really that well. In the 9th position with 16 points, and of course Kataka coming in, of course, in the 10th position. Then looking at Tungasaze, 12 points in the 11th position. Kigezi Homa Boys, and of course with 12 points in the 12th position there to their name. Busoga United, 11 points. Very, very terrible for them there. They'll have to do a lot really to come out. Looking at the formation here, and of course Busoga, they did win only 2, and of course with the 2 losses, draw in their name. They're really putting them in that position. Others are attached to, of course, rules not really followed. That's why they're in that position. And of course, Arua Hill in the 14th position with the 10 points. This time picking, of course, number of, and of course, kind of points. They lost the points, of course. 4 games, all that they lost. That is, of course, Arua Hill. So bad for them. And of course, first to let you know, the next game that Arua Hill will play, and I said, of course, they will come to West Nile, of course, to play the other side there. That is in the Uganda Cup. Lastly, we have Maida, of course, rocking the bottom. They are in the 15th position with, that is 5 points, losing number of games there. That is Maida. Really, Maida seems to be, you know, when you look at Maida, they did offload players. I'm talking about key players. When you look at Maida, of course, one of the players we're talking about, that is Mahad, a very, very strong player, of course, from West Nile. They were the very players who really led the team to the big leg side. But this time he's out of the game. This could be one of the things really letting down. It's sometimes not all that good to see how you want to maneuver, maybe make things with the new opportunities, which in most cases doesn't work out. And of course, that is made there very, very bad for them. Now, looking at the next fixtures, of course, in the big league, that were likely to witness, of course. These matches are likely to take place tomorrow. I mean Sunday, date 12th of January 2025. That's exactly what we're talking about. The big league matches which are to come. And of course, incredibly, we're looking at the top leaders there in the table. They will travel all the way. That's Gaddafi, who will travel all the way to, that's Black Powers. This game will be tomorrow. And of course, not forgetting Boma. Boma will play, that is Busoga United. This game will also be tomorrow. Calvary will welcome home, of course, onto Paraka. That is one of the biggest talks that we're going to talk about. That's the derby, of course, in the big league pertaining West Nile. The game will be tomorrow. We shall come and talk about this game. And of course, on the card also tomorrow, we shall also witness, that is Karo Karungi. They will take on Maida, another struggling side there. We have Kataka, will take on Sunga Zaze. We have Kigezi Homeboys, of course, they will welcome home, that is Buhimba. And of course, Kiindi Boys will welcome, that's by the Black Angels. All these games will be tomorrow, Sunday. And of course, to start with, we're going to discuss about some of these matches tomorrow. Quite tricky matches. We did get, of course, reports that really came all the way from the clubs. And of course, looking at Kigezi, they have just played the game, of course. That game was played on Wednesday. They traveled to Calvary. They did lose to Calvary, of course, 2-0 there. They rested for some few time. And of course, when they played yesterday, that is the other side, of course, Pakwachi Youngsters, where they lost 3 goals in the Uganda Cup. And also tomorrow, they are to play. Quite tricky. And this gives, of course, a kind of tricky question to the management. It's sometimes how you prepare yourself. In this case, of course, you need a good number of players, if not based on how I want to look at how West Nile is in most cases. You'll see you will have good number of licenses, but by the end of it all, unless you go with few licenses and look at how the sequence of games are being planned. That means you're likely to face challenges in the game. You did play a game on Wednesday, you have to play a bit, rest, and of course also come like 2 days, you have to play, that is Calvary, that ended of course 2-0, and of course this time you have to again play in the Uganda Cup. That's a very big question, and of course, wish them all the best in their next game. We're talking about the Kigezi Homeboys there as they still tour West Nile with a kind of misery right there. And of course, the biggest game to talk about now, we're talking about, that is Calvary will welcome home, that is Onduparaka. And of course, this is one of the interesting games that everyone will love to watch. When you look at this very game, the last time, of course, Calvary did play, that is Onduparaka, not really far from good records. I know people are so much eager to hear what's exactly going to happen. This game will be tomorrow. When you look at the first 5 games these 2 teams played, of course, each. Calvary, of course, the last game they won about, that's about Kigezi Homeboys, 2-0. They lost to Kiindi Boys, of course, 2-1. And of course, Karo Karungi, they drew, that is on away game, and they did win at home. That's against Kataka, 2-1, and they lost it to, that is Black Powers, by 2-1. That's Calvary. Let's try to look at Onduparaka. The last game they won, of course, 1-0. after that is Caesar Okuti being introduced in to give that assist for Kigundu. Of course, we remember that goal, that last match they played 1-0 in favor of course Onduparaka against that Kindi Boys. They did also of course draw, that's against Kigezi Boys in an away game 1-1, and they did have a massive win, that's against Karu Karungi 5-1. That's Onduparaka. And also picking, of course, a total loss there, 2-1, and of course winning. When you look at the statistics, it tells you Onduparaka seems to be quite outstanding here. But let's try to look at the detailed records between the two. When you look at Calvary, they first 5 home games. That's where so much Calvary has been relying. They did beat, of course, Kigezi Boys 2-0. That's what I said. And of course, 2-1 against Karu Karungi at home. They also did beat 3-1, that is Busoga United at home. And of course, drawing with Boma 0-0, and of course beating also Ntungazaze 2-0. What does it imply? That means Calvary seems to be quite strong when it comes to home matches, and that is per the statistics. And Onduparaka this time traveling home. That means they are likely, and of course, to see. But that is for the home side there, looking at Calvary. And this time, let's try to look at that is our own Onduparaka here. How has their away games been? Of course, they did lose. They did lose, of course, 2-1 to Kataka. They drew, of course, 1-1 against Kigezi Boys. That is the away record. The third, of course, they did lose. Of course, that is to Boma, 1-0. This game plays on 15th, of course, of October 2024. All of you still remember that game. They did draw, of course, with Tungazaze 1-1. They drew, of course, with that is Busoga 0-0. That is per the two. But then when you look at the head-to-head, the last, Calvary, of course, did win 2-1. What does this imply? We're talking about the Calvary side in the position, of course, their faith. They seems to be quite strong when it comes to the away matches. Quite strong when it comes to home matches. That's Calvary. And of course, speaking to the latest news coming from that's Calvary, of course, as we did speak directly to the management, the PRO, he did give us, of course, more about how prepared the team is, and of course, the players so far so much are prepared. They did complete their successful training pertaining the game. And of course, for the players who are likely not to be in the match, of course, we're talking about Feni Rahman, who has been out, of course, since the fixture. That means Feni Rahman for Calvary will not be available. That's what we're talking about. All the team needs for tomorrow. That is based on a Calvary side. We also have, that is Ronald. Ronald, of course, is also out, and he's out for like a month, and still that means he will not play that game. And also still you have Junior Emmanuel is also out. Adrico Emmanuel is also out. Then you have Okwaput Joshua out also. And that means he's not going to future. And of course, the number still continues. Of course, we're seeing the likes of that is Omare Muhunzi, and of course, not forgetting KD Michael. That is for Team Calvary. These two players may not be available for that game tomorrow, but all seems to be well placed. That is the sources coming live from there. And I said the game between Calvary and that is Onduparaka, of course, FC. This game will be tomorrow, Sunday, of course, at that is at Calvary or at Midigo Playground, where everyone will be there. And of course, that is per the big league, and I did say a couple of games that are going to come your way. That means you don't miss in most cases. You know, these are West Nile teams. We need to really cheer up and give support for them. And I'm talking about Calvary that will play. That is Rua Hill. That marks it, and of course for that is the FUFA big league side there. And of course, before we come in for a short commercial break, and I want us to quickly have a wrap up of what we call the FUFA Big League, which is soon to come your way. And of course, looking at the FUFA Big League, we did talk about most of these games that are coming. We said the FUFA Big League, of course, it's just at the corner. We're talking about the Uganda Premier League. The Uganda Premier League, which is really which has taken due without surfacing. And of course, we're also here to take you through some of the matches that will come all the way. Looking at quite interesting here, looking at the results, of course, are played. Of course, Big League did rest for some good time where they didn't play. And I think for now should be, of course, the last results that were played on date 7. URA, of course, did win 1-0 against the Police. And of course, Bull also are drawing with the Wakiso Giants 1-1. And of course, not forgetting Kitara, and of course, so bad for them there, winning the 1-0 as they really did release that Omedi to APR side that is in Rwanda. To me should be very, very bad there for Kitara. And of course, Mbale Heroes, of course, did lose 1-0 against the NEC. And that is Mbarara City did, of course, lose also to Kampala City or KCCA 2-0. Other games, of course, played on date 6. We see Vipers, of course, beating Maroons 1-0. And, of course, not forgetting Bright Stars drawing with Lugazi 1-1, all there for them, getting all points. The last game on card played, as we did witness, of course, UPDF losing to Express 2-0. And, of course, to give you a wrap-up of the table standing, pertaining that is the Uganda Premier League side, which is really quite interesting for them. Viper still stands top, of course, with 34 points. We have NEC second with 33 points. KCCA 27, third in the position there. Not really so bad for them. And we also have Express in the fourth position with the 25th points. We also have URA in the fifth position with the 24 points. Looking at Maroons, of course, Maroons with 22 points in the sixth position. Kitara, quite interesting. They have been scoring goals for fun, but this time where they are placed in the table, not really that good for them. That is Kitara. Of course, this time again, losing Omedi, one of the strikers, key players, of course. What does this give to the Kitara team? Could this be? That's a question we're also going to, of course, we're talking about the Kitara there. 7 in the position, like we said, with 21 points. Number 8 comes, of course, Villa with the 20 points, and then Bull in the 9th position with the 20 points. 10, Police, of course, with 18 points. Not really good there for Police this time. And, of course, they have been following each other. Next come, of course, that is UPDF with 17 points in position 11. We're talking about the forces there, following each other. Performance this time dropping. We're talking about Police and UPDF, of course, lying in 10th and 11th position. There, number 12, we have Lugazi in the 14th position. Lugazi, of course, with 14 points. That's Lugazi in very bad there, not really that far from the red zone. We're talking about Lugazi. What went wrong with the Lugazi, of course? That's what we shall also find out. And they have 14 points with 12 in the 12th position. Then Barara City, 13 position with 14 points. And of course, the red zone, the 3 last, of course, we mean the red zone, of course. The relegation zone, we're talking about Wakiso Giants, of course, at 12 points in position 14. And then number 15, we have 10, and that is a Bright Stars with the 10 points. And then the last one there, we have Mbale Heroes with 9, and of course, points there, picking total lose for them. And of course, the Uganda Premier League will get back on its way. And of course, you need to mark your calendar. 22nd of January, that's when the Uganda Premier League will get back. And of course, the viewers, we would like to thank you so much for being with us. Before we really finish up, of course, we want us to break it for a short commercial break. After that, more of